The most advanced fighter jet on Earth has a gun that lasts 3.3 seconds. Not 3.3 minutes, not 3.3 hours, 3.3 seconds of trigger pull. That's it. And yet the United States spent $400 billion developing this aircraft. So here's the question that nobody asks out loud. If the F-35 stealth fails, if an enemy radar sees it coming, what exactly is this jet supposed to do? The answer will change everything you think you know about modern air combat. The future of warfare was never about hiding. It was about knowing. Here's what most people believe. The F-35 is a stealth jet first, fighter second. The idea is simple. Make the plane invisible. Enemy radar can't track what it can't see. Problem solved. And for decades, that logic held. The F-117 Nighthawk proved it in 1991 during Operation Desert Storm 42 F-117s. Flew over 1,250 sorties and weren't hit once. 0 losses. Stealth worked perfectly. So the Pentagon went bigger. They funded the Joint Strike Fighter program, what would become the F-35. 3 variants. For the Air Force, the Navy, the Marines. One platform to replace everything. The assumption, from politicians to generals to journalists, was the same. This is a stealth aircraft. Hide it. Launch it. Win. But here's where it gets strange. The engineers who actually built the F-35 weren't designing an invisible plane. They were designing a flying supercomputer. And the reason why starts with a wreckage field in a Serbian wheat field in 1999. Oh, and by the way, the F-35 can see a missile launch from 1,200 kilometers away. Not with radar, with heat. 6 infrared cameras embedded into the jet's skin, flush with the surface, invisible. From the outside, stitched together a perfect thermal sphere around the aircraft. A surface-to-air missile igniting its motor produces roughly 3,000 degrees Celsius of heat signature. The F-35's DAS picks that up before any legacy radar system knows. The launch button was pressed. Keep that in your head. We're going to come back to it. March 27th, 1999. A Serbian army officer named Colonel Zoltan Dani points a Soviet-era radar dish, the Neva-M, built in 1961, at the sky over Belgrade. And he sees a ghost. The ghost is an F-117 Nighthawk, America's first stealth aircraft, the jet that was supposed to be invisible. It is not invisible. Here's why. The F-117 was designed to defeat high-frequency radar, the kind operating above 3 gigahertz. Its angular, faceted surfaces scatter high-frequency radar energy away from the receiver. That's how stealth works at those frequencies. But Donnie had switched his radar down to roughly 160 megahertz, VHF band. Long wavelength. And here's the brutal physics. When a radar wavelength approaches, the physical dimensions of an aircraft surface, a wing edge, a tail fin, creates a resonance effect. The aircraft stops scattering the wave. It starts re-radiating it. The F-117's tail fins are approximately 1.8 meters tall. At 160 megahertzes, the wavelength is almost 2 meters, a near-perfect match. The stealth coating was irrelevant. The shape itself became the antenna. Danny fired 2 SA-3 missiles. The F-117 was destroyed. Its pilot ejected. And back in the United States, the engineers designing the next generation of American air power stared at that footage and faced a problem they couldn't solve with better paint. Low-frequency radar, the kind operated by China's JY-26 Skywatch, by Russia's Nebo-MC stealth aircraft, period. Not well, not precisely enough to guide a missile to an exact intercept, but well enough to know the jet is there, well enough to vector a threat toward it. So the question became, if you cannot build a jet that is invisible to all radar, in all conditions, forever, how do you build a jet that survives anyway? The answer was not a faster engine. It was not a bigger missile load. It was information. The F-35 carries the AN/APG-81 AESA radar, active electronically scanned array. Legacy radar works like a lighthouse, one beam, rotating, sweeping the sky in. a cycle that takes several seconds to complete. The APG-81 works nothing like that. It uses 1,676 individual transmit-receive modules, each one a tiny radar in its own right, firing independently across different frequencies in different directions every 2 milliseconds. It can simultaneously track 20+ airborne targets, map ground terrain in high-resolution synthetic aperture mode, and jam enemy radar at the same time. Right now, while doing everything else, no legacy radar on any aircraft currently operational does all three at once. But the real revolution is what happens with all that data. The F-35's integrated core processor, running at approximately 400 billion operations per second, takes inputs from the APG-81 radar, the DAS infrared system, the AESA-239 electronic warfare suite, the ANUS jamming system, the data link from other aircraft, satellite feeds, and 4 other sensor arrays, and it fuses them. Not display them separately on 9 different screens, fuses them into one. The pilot looks through the $400,000 helmet. They see one picture, every threat, every target, every radar beam currently illuminates the jet in real time. Synthesized, color-coded, prioritized. Now here's where everything you assumed gets corrected. Most people believe stealth is the F-35's primary survival mechanism. It is not. The stealth is the entry ticket. It gets the aircraft close enough, undetected, to gather information first. Once the F-35 is detected, once a low-frequency radar, like China's JY-26, finds it at range, the aircraft shifts mode instantly. The ANASQ-239 Barracuda electronic warfare suite identifies the exact frequency the enemy radar is using. The AESA radar then transmits a precisely tuned jamming signal on that frequency. The enemy's radar operator doesn't just lose track of the target. Their display fills with noise. They can't distinguish the jet from the jamming. They can't guide a missile to what they can't resolve. Meanwhile, the F-35 has already launched its weapons from the internal bay. The enemy pilot or SAM operator is fighting blind. The F-35 is not. That is the design philosophy. Not be invisible forever. It's see everything. First, act before they can respond, and if they find you anyway, blind them. But the number that really puts this into perspective is the data link range. Via the multifunction Advanced Data Link, MADL, the F-35 can share its complete sensor picture with every other F-35 within several hundred miles. Encrypted. Low probability of intercept waveform. What that means in practice, one F-35 with its radar on can see for every 5 F-35 running silent. A flight of 4 aircraft, 3 dark, 1 active, creates a surveillance bubble that an enemy cannot find, cannot jam, and cannot predict. The fleet itself becomes the sensor. The individual jet is just the shooter. But here's what most people don't realize. Every single one of the F-35's 9 sensor systems exists because of that. Serbian wheat field. After the F-117 went down in 1999, a classified postmortem examined every failure point. The conclusions were stark. A single sensor stealth platform, one that relied entirely on shape and radar-absorbent material, was fundamentally fragile. One clever adversary with one old radar on one unusual frequency could defeat it. The Joint Strike Fighter program already underway pivoted. The requirement changed. The aircraft could not rely on stealth alone. It had to be survivable. After detection, it had to carry the cognitive advantage, even in a fight. The engineers essentially built a flying intelligence apparatus with a jet attached. And here's the extraordinary part. The Serbian colonel who shot down the F-117, Zoltan Dani, was later interviewed and asked how he did it. His answer was almost philosophical. He said he turned off his radar whenever he thought the Americans might be looking for it. He went dark for hours, then turned it on briefly, precisely when he calculated an F-117 might be overhead. He used patience and timing, human factors, to defeat $1 billion technological advantage. The engineers who read that interview built the DAS system partly in response. The 1,200-kilometer missile launch detection exists specifically because an enemy can go active for just a few seconds, just long enough to fire, and the F-35 needs to know the instant that happens. Every sensor on that jet is an answer to a specific lesson bought in blood and wreckage. The F-35 is not the future of stealth. It is the future of what happens when stealth is not enough. A $100 million aircraft, 9 sensor systems, 1 pilot, and the most sophisticated information warfare machine ever put in the sky, built specifically because a retired colonel in Serbia proved that no aircraft can hide forever. Here's the question I want you to sit with. As adversaries like China and Russia develop AI-driven sensor fusion of their own, systems that can process radar returns and infrared signatures faster than any human. Operator, does information dominance give the F-35 a permanent edge, or is that advantage temporarily? And if it is temporary, what comes after it? Leave your answer below. I'm genuinely curious what you think. If you want to understand how the F-22 Raptor, the aircraft, the F-35, was never meant to replace, actually achieve supercruise without afterburner, I've already broken that down in full. It's right here.